Welcome to the Sellernomics Podcast, where we share valuable tips and information in the Amazon and e-commerce space. Each week, we deliver the best interviews with some of the top Amazon personalities in the industry to help you grow your business. Today's episode is brought to you by GETIDA, the global leader in FBA auditing and reimbursements. Get $400 in free FBA reimbursements at getida.com/Sellernomics. And now, here are your hosts, Rob Stanley and Lisa Kinski.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of Sellernomics. I am your host, Lisa Kinski, joined by my co-host, Rob Stanley. And we have a really exciting episode for you guys today. We have Daniel Tejada on with us from Straight Up Growth, and we're going to be talking about how to maximize your ROI with Amazon advertising, a very hot topic right now. So, Daniel, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Hello, hello. Nice to be on today.
Very excited to have you with us. So, Daniel, let's just jump straight into it, right? So how can we increase our organic sales on Amazon first? Obviously, paid is one way to increase sales, right? But what about organic?
Yeah, so it's a great question, right? Organic sales really comes down to, at the end of the day, where you rank organically against your non-branded or branded search terms, right? Visibility ultimately becomes key towards that. Increasing organic revenue is simple if you think of it from a concept, right? It's just, how do I place myself in better organic positions so that I'm able to actually take advantage of organic revenue? How Amazon really determines where you rank from a SEO perspective is fairly simple, right? It's basically just your relevancy score. Your relevancy score is based on three factors. How many clicks does a product or child ASIN have against the search term? How many sales or orders does a child ASIN have against a search term? And ultimately, what's your product conversion rate against that search term itself? And so what we're doing, as advertisers or as sellers on Amazon, is one of two things, right? We're manipulating the search terms that we actually go after and how much we spend there. So that's going to impact the number of orders against the search terms we're trying to rank on. And the other thing we can manipulate is conversion rate, right? And that comes down to listing optimization. So it's really two kind of pieces there, right? So actually optimizing your listing, getting USPs on your product imagery, right? Upgrading to like A+ premium, making sure that you're putting USP directly in your images. USPs are unique selling points, right? Those are like definitely adding text or reasons why customers should buy the products directly on your listing. That'll impact that conversion rate. And then ultimately the ad spend is going to determine your ability to rank, right? So there's a number of, third-party tools one could leverage to identify what are the number of orders on a monthly basis you need to get to top of search. And then it's simply a matter of adjusting your ad campaigns to actually hit that total number of orders a month, right? So the big mistake people make is, let's say they're trying to rank on a term like protein bar, but you're not spending enough on the term like protein bar. Doesn't matter if your conversion rate's really good. It doesn't matter if it's really expensive for you to go after that term, because if you're not actually driving enough orders, you won't actually make any impact organically. And so understanding what that number is that you need to actually drive to get that SEO benefit is really, really key at the end of the day. So that's my simple version of improving organic visibility.
Yeah. And I think those USPs, in my opinion, as a consumer, are a really important piece to the puzzle, because as you're going through, you're kind of comparing different listings and different products in your head. Price definitely plays a role, but I just bought a new standing desk for my new home office. And one of the main USPs that I remember them showing was like 2 stabilizing bars instead of just one. So you're like, table wasn't teetering, I guess. And the ones that didn't list that, I just immediately closed. Like it does make a big difference.
It's unbelievable. And a lot of the times too, it's like, there's certain brands that are selling a differentiator, right? Maybe there's something unique that really changes it. But a lot of categories, if you do a search, most of the products are basically the same, right? And sometimes it's even the same manufacturer. It's just a different label, right? And so really it's who does a better job explaining why you should buy my brand versus their brand is really the big key. And USPs are a major, major part of that.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're talking about organic sales, let's touch a little bit on, is that different or the same when you're, let's say, say you're using Amazon or Google ads to drive some traffic in, or maybe you're doing YouTube or Pinterest or something like that. are some of those considered organic also, or is that not part of the organic? Just kind of separate that.
So what I would say is like what I'd call that is brand building, right? They're really creating branded volume on Amazon. And so there's a lot of different ways that can happen. I still consider any branded volume organic traffic in general, right? Because it's going to help facilitate your sales on Amazon. There's a brand called Goli, who I like to use. They're like a vitamin brand, right?
Yeah, Goli, right? They have like the gummies.
Exactly. And they're like the Jennifer Lopez brand one, right? And like, I don't know if you've ever seen them, any of their items when they launch on Amazon. I always love to look because I'll see a new TV commercial, right? They go pretty hard on traditional media. All of a sudden, like they launch like a apple cider vinegar, right? That item has hundreds of thousands of reviews directly because of this brand building exercise that they do, right? So they'll launch an item, they get thousands of reviews overnight because they get massive branded volume increases. So people go to Amazon because they see that TV buy. They then, search for Goli. They purchase the item, they leave reviews. That now makes the ability to grow on the non-branded effort on Amazon that much more powerful, right? But it's that organic sales volume that was created from that branded volume that really enables a brand like that to succeed over time. So really building the brand out and building branded volume is a massive asset from an organic perspective. It's hard to consider it organic sometimes because, especially if you're doing like a paid, like for Goli, it is a paid version, right? There are brands that maybe get really successful on something like TikTok though, right? Maybe they pull that off organically, not in a paid fashion. You start to see, branded increased volumes on Amazon. I would consider that pretty organic, right, across the board. Any of those sales that are happening, and can still allow you to then move on to the things that we can control when we're on Amazon in regards to trying to improve organic revenue.
When we're talking about launching a new product, in your opinion, where should sellers be spending most of their time, on organic and brand building, or should they be spending more time on paid? Because like we just said, sometimes the listing is actually the same manufacturer. It's the same product. It's just a matter of the stamp that's on it. So and sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes they are actually selling a differentiated item. So where do you recommend that sellers start when they're launching a new product, paid or the organic?
Yeah, great question. I think the paid has direct impact on the organic, right? And the tricky part now is that Amazon, particularly in the US, is so saturated that most of the time, if you try to just focus on organic, the problem is that, like, let's say I launched let's use a protein bar again, right? If I launch a protein bar, there's so many protein bars on Amazon that I could build out this amazing listing. I could really build out some great images, get videos taken, build a beautiful listing, but I'm on page 3 or 4, when someone searches protein bar, right? And 81% of clicks happen on the page 1 of Amazon for any given search term, right? So me being on page 3, it doesn't matter that I put so much work into building the brand. People ultimately won't be able to find me. And so I'm not going to really see very good sales velocity. Versus what we typically like to focus on a product launch is improving organic visibility, but we do it through advertisements, right? So we want to get our listings to be what we call retail ready. They're not perfect, but they are we at least have our bullet points, lined up where they should be, our titles lined up where they should be. We've at least got some basic images with USPs put in there. We might not have like video set up yet. We might not have all of our user generated content set up yet, but we can use stock imagery and some Photoshop to get things going. But the big key is, how do I start getting this product to rank on any search terms, right? It doesn't have to be the sexiest terms either, right? Like people always go for the high volume terms. I like to say you can get full off the scraps because there's plenty of long tail keywords, right? You can start to rank on that don't require as many orders to actually get to top of search there, right? It's not going to be huge lifts organically, but over time, it can definitely create a sizable business for a seller there.
That's a super good phrase. You can get full off the scraps. I like that. Sorry, Rob, go ahead.
Scrappy here. So
no, that is a good one. I want to just kind of go back around to listing optimization. You were kind of touching on it a little bit.
Yeah.
Why don't you kind of just list for us a few of the items that maybe new sellers tend to not do correctly on listing optimization? And what are some of the advanced sellers doing that kind of set them apart from the new sellers?
Great question. So I think everybody pays attention to their title, their bullet points, and maybe their back-end keywords, right? If you're a new seller, like a lot of people, I see them spend like hours on like back-end keywords there, right? And then it's valuable, it's going to get you index for things. But at the end of the day, it doesn't make you rank that much better if I have protein bar, my back-end keyword, my bullet point, and my title, I'm still going to show up on page 3 to 5 if I'm net new compared to my folks that are ranking on page 1. Really, when we're optimizing listings, we want to think about conversion first, right? So we're not trying to stuff our listings with keywords. We're trying to really outline why a customer should buy this item over the other ones there. So I'd say that's the first piece, is just like the intention of your listing optimization should be less like, let me get as many keywords in here, but more, how do I get someone to actually buy? Then the next piece that I think is important is what's the most important for purchase? And we have to think about the mobile shopper. About 81% of clicks on Amazon happen on mobile. Yeah. And so what does that mean? Bullet points way below the fold, right? That's where a lot of sellers spend their time. They actually need to think about A+ content and product images. Those are probably two of the most important factors for conversion, particularly because of how mobile is set up. So that doesn't just mean using your images, doesn't just mean like getting imagery in A+ content, but it also means getting text in those images as well, right? When someone's on their phone, they should be able to just literally swipe on the product images and understand the same things that they would see in their bullet points. So usually our customers can figure out literally the exact same thing that they would have found out from bullet points, they can find out from imagery there. That's key. A+ content is a huge asset there as well. So we definitely leverage utilizing A+. If you're clever with the way you upload your images, you can also kind of build your own kind of format as well. So you could make like stackable images for A+, which looks really good for an endless scroll there, which we highly recommend. Amazon has something called a brand story, which is new. It's free. It shows up like just above your A+ content. A lot of brands aren't using it, but it's free content, right? It's another place to showcase your brand. And you can even link out to different storefront pages. So if you want to be creative and start building some more aggressive storefront pages built on conversion, you can put that right in your brand story now. So just things that we definitely recommend. I'd say those are my kind of like key highlights. There's other things obviously from a listing optimization standpoint, but really focusing on conversion rate is key there.
What are some of the other data points that sellers should pay attention to in addition to the conversion rate? Obviously that's huge, right? But what else is key to pay attention to and monitor?
Sessions by product, not just by account. Your sessions, like in the business report, typically I like to treat it by parent ASIN there. If you've got a variation listing, if you have things broken apart, you'll do it by child ASIN. But the reason sessions is such an important KPI is sessions is essentially the number of unique visitors getting to your product listings themselves, right? So a lot of times we'll run into an account where, do an audit and maybe 80% of the revenue is going towards 1 or 2 items, right? In a portfolio of maybe like 50 items. And a lot of times the sellers assume like, these other items, we launched them, they just didn't work. But in actuality, when you break it down, the conversion rate might be high for those items. The sessions or traffic is low. And what that tells me is you don't have a product issue, you have a visibility issue, right? And so making sure you're looking at things like traffic and sessions can be really, really key. Conversion rate ultimately is going to be important. And then just creating benchmarks. There are ways to figure out different benchmarks by subcategories, even within Amazon on things like unit session percentage there. So that can definitely give you a good idea of where things are at.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then one
Daniel,
other thing that I think, go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah, no, I was just going to ask you about, to maybe also let's touch a little bit on, there's different Amazon offers different advertising types, right? And maybe if you could, for some of the newer sellers, just kind of go over some of those advertising other options that are available to them, and which ones do you think that they should be looking at that are important to them? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you if you want to finish on what you were saying.
So two kind of pillars, right, to Amazon advertising. There is the search advertising, and then there's the DSP advertising, or demand side platform. Both are incredibly powerful. Both can be incredibly valuable for sellers, but different goals for each. Looking on the search side of things, that's the core. So every seller, we recommend pushing search even before you start pushing DSP. That's going to be your real driver of traffic and really start to set your Amazon account up for success. Now within the search advertising, a couple different options you have. You have things like sponsored products. So those are going to be just your standard, looks just like your hero image on Amazon. The only difference you can see when you're looking through search is that little sponsored in just like really small text. You've got your sponsored brand, which are your banner kind of advertisements across, above and also now on bottom of page. Then you've got your sponsored brand video and then sponsored display, which is what I call like DSP light almost, right? So it's like similar type of concepts as similar types of audiences is what you can see through DSP, just not as much control and not as much flexibility as what you have the ability to do on the DSP side of things. Sponsored products is where I'd say 70% of our revenue or our ad spend drives historically. There are certain instances where sponsored brands or sponsored brand video maybe can push the point home a little bit further, but I'd say historically 70% of spend goes through sponsored products. It's the cheapest ad type out there, and so it's the easiest to get impressions. It has the most placements available there, and so sponsored products historically is going to be a really great place to start. I'd say things like sponsored brand video can be excellent assets, but usually what I like to use them for is either cross promotion can be a great way, right? So like you can run sponsored brands to get customers into multiple items that you're selling, right? It can be great for branded traffic as well to get folks into other items that you're selling. Maybe if you have a core item that does a lot of volume, you want to get them into some of your other ones. Sponsored brands are a great way to get there. Then we run into things like sponsored brand video. I love video as really a supplement to some of the terms that I'm trying to rank on. So like, let's say I really wanted to rank on a search term. Best case scenario is if I have the budget and I can run a sponsored brand ad, a sponsored product ad, and a sponsored brand video. Now you have 3 ad impressions, all within one like small scroll of the top of search there. So that can be a really, really great way to just reinforce sales. Like we find that if you run a sponsored brand video ad against the same search term you're running a sponsored product ad, you'll see your conversion rate on your sponsored product ad improve if that video is there versus not being there. So sometimes it's just there to take up some of the real estate, which can be fruitful. And then sponsored display, really, you got to get a little bit creative with how you use it. It can be fruitful there, but targeting like past purchasers for cross promotion, great option. Targeting viewed but not purchased, great kind of option to help improve overall conversion rates. So there's a lot of fun ways to do things. DSP is a whole nother beast, but what I'll say for DSP, just to keep it simple, is start to maximize your search before you start, visiting DSP, right? There's some really great ways to do it, but it's not necessarily going to see the same impact. There are people that'll talk about how great the ROI is on DSP, which it can be phenomenal, but it could be phenomenal usually when you're targeting bottom funnel function. So viewed but not purchased, past purchasers, trying to get customers into secondary items and things like that. Great tool for that. Going to be a great, high ROI. But when you start going into top of funnel for something like DSP, let's say we're targeting, a particular audience segment, you're not even optimizing against ROAS. When you're doing top of funnel, you're optimizing against click-through rate and detail page view rate, right? And so ideally what you're doing is you're getting customers in your pool. Then you want to hit them with like a multi-step fashion, and where you're like, okay, now I'm going to hit you with a retargeting ad because you've already gotten into my pool, and you want to start using different custom creatives and the whole 9 yards. So DSP is definitely its own beast. There's a lot more things I think that are required to make it run successfully, but start with search, right? Search can definitely help you build, phenomenal business, and then start exploring the other options from there.
Awesome tips, Daniel. We're going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsor. And when we come back, I want to talk a little bit more about forecasting. So we'll be right back.
Did you know that Amazon probably owes you money for FBA reimbursements? Get $400 in free FBA reimbursements at GETIDA.com/Sellernomics.
All right. right, you guys, head to getida.com/sellernomics for the first 400 and FBA reimbursements free. We are back with Daniel Tejada from Straight Up Growth. And Daniel, like I said, I want to talk a little bit about forecasting. Where does advertising play a role in forecasting? How does it help? How can it hinder if not done correctly? Tell us more about that.
Great question. So advertising, I think, is the number one thing people forget about when they are building their forecast models, right? I'll use a very simple version of forecasting. So Amazon actually has like a forecasting feature that they have in their inventory planning section, right, of Seller Central. And they recently added one where they could even show you like different weeks runway and things like that. However, the problem with that model is it's based on existing sales velocity, right? Advertising is really the thing that's going to change your sales velocity directly there. And so when we're forecasting, right, we should be always constantly thinking about what sort of ad budgets do we have now versus future, because it's going to impact not just our ads driven sales, but even our organic sales over time. And so like when we build out forecasting models, sometimes we'll create a variable sort of model where we'll show how different ad spends impact overall sales, right? So that you're able to better plan accordingly. The reason this is so important really comes down to ranking. When we talk about organic sales volume, right? Every day you're out of stock. I typically say that puts you 1.5 to 2 days behind on your ranking efforts. So if I was spending, a boatload of money to rank on a specific search query, my sales velocity increases, overall sales increase, everybody's happy. Then all of a sudden we run out of inventory. If I'm out of stock for 15 days, basically that was like puts me a month behind on my forecast, right? In that model. And so now that extra ad spend that you spent to rank is not as efficient as it would have been if you spent less money, didn't rank as quickly, and stayed in stock, right? Against those search terms. So really, really super important thinking about your ad budget in regards to your forecasting itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about, let's talk a little bit about like driving external traffic. I know that's a big subject. What have you found are some of the favorites as far as you've seen that seem to be more effective when it comes to driving external traffic to your Amazon listing?
Yeah, so I think it kind of just depends on what you're selling ultimately, and like how aggressive you are at building a brand, right? What I will say is the folks that are driving outside traffic and really focusing on a brand versus an individual item, those folks tend to do a lot better than folks that are just trying to drive like a commodity there. And the big part of it is like, we can use like vitamins, for example, right? Like supplements, there's not even that many manufacturers for most of the supplement companies. Like most of what you're buying is the same thing as everybody else there. But you still get served like a ton of Facebook or Meta ads, let's say for like supplement products in general, vitamins, it's like a huge category. And the ones that do well are the ones that aren't selling it as like, hey, this is a vitamin C, right? It's like, this is our brand, and here's a vitamin C that we offer, right? And really like building that brand can be huge. And that will also allow the outside traffic to become more and more powerful. So one, you start to build a list, right? Over time, not only should you be driving that traffic to Amazon, but doing some sort of first party data capture, whether it's a phone number, an email address. That means you can keep hitting them. It also means once they buy, any future launches are easier because now you start to build a list of folks that like will purchase items from you guys, or at least have purchased one item there. So I'll say the brands that are really effective are ones that are building a brand, ones that are building lists together. There's certain avenues that work great. Like TikTok can be super powerful just because the organic reach is massive on TikTok. So if you can figure out how to get TikTok to work, it can really change your whole business. I know I saw, what's it called? I'm actually using this, like Simply Modern has a cup, or Simple Modern, which is like an Amazon, pretty Amazon focused sort of water brand there. There was a different brand called Stanley, which went viral on TikTok.
Yep.
Simple Modern did a like kind of an upgraded version of it. That blew up on TikTok, and now that brand like isn't even running ads. And like their branded volume is crushing it because brand volume blew up, right? So TikTok is like the best if you can get it to go.
Yeah, I think I saw that it was like the Stanley Cup dupe that actually doesn't leak. I think is
exactly,
how they,
and that's literally So like my fiance has the Stanley, I have the Simple Modern version, right? And it's like no ads traffic was needed. It's just that they built a brand that then went viral, right, towards it. Like people are calling it a Stanley Cup. It's a terrible cup that fits in your cup holder, right? Like, but it's blown up because it has this branded volume, you know.
Yeah, I feel like TikTok is really difficult though. And that's a whole nother conversation that we could spend like an hour and a half on, right? Because you don't know what folks are actually going to like. You don't know which going to catch virality. It changes.
No, it's definitely hard. But what I will say is a lot of content, right? Content is king on any of these platforms that have organic placements. It's like LinkedIn, right? Same thing. Like it's like for LinkedIn, if you start to post a lot more frequently, all of a sudden things catch up a lot faster than if you're doing like, posts like once in a while. Same thing for most of these other platforms as well.
Yeah, content and consistency. So would you say then, just kind of to summarize as far as growth on Amazon, would you say that the brand building is the best place to focus your time?
I think brand building is huge. Brand building is going to make everything else easier after your first product launch as well, right? Once you have a successful product that is under a brand and not just a commodity, it makes it much easier to launch other things. Like there's this example, there's a company called Ghost pre-workout, right? They're like super viral they really have focused entirely on brand building. They started with their pre-workouts. The other day I noticed they're selling vitamins, right? They're like supplements and stuff. And like, it's not like an innovation focused one. It's literally just like, so many people know us, we can now sell more things. And it's a lot cheaper to sell those things. Like because they already have such a big audience. So building that brand can be, just so huge for success in the long term on Amazon.
Awesome. Yeah, and it'll help them off Amazon too, like we said, like with TikTok and things like that.
Exactly.
So any other interesting, I guess, tidbits or final words as far as Amazon advertising go to kind of help sellers in 2023? We're going to be gearing up for Q4 here soon. What are some of the best practices with paid ads? And I feel like this too, like you said, you have to factor in your sales velocity, and advertising is going to accelerate that. So be sure that you're not advertising beyond what your inventory has. That's probably like the biggest mistake, right? Like you said before. But what other major tips do you have for sellers when it comes to
great question. One other pro tip I usually like to say is less is more in regards to your catalog. So if you have a limited budget, which we all have, you may have a larger catalog. Think about how many clicks you're actually able to drive with the budget that you have per item, right? That becomes an important part. So if I've got, if I could drive 1,000 clicks a month and I've got 100 items in my catalog, I probably want to drive ads to one item right in there and make that a new customer acquisition vehicle. So you have enough clicks to actually make an impact, right? If you're driving, any low price item needs at least 30 to 50 clicks per search term to get statistically significant on how a term will perform, right? So just simple math. If you're not like 100 clicks really only lets you test like 2 to 4 search terms, right? There. And so that should matter based on the number of items that you're running. So I think that's a big mistake a lot of brands make. And then ad efficiency there, like pay attention to how much ad spend goes to things like research match types. It's your auto, your broad, your phrase. They can perform well, but when you usually do an actual deep dive beyond the surface level, you'll find that a lot of wasted or non-converting spend tends to run through those match types. And so moving winners from research campaigns to exact match is going to allow you to be a lot more efficient with your ad dollars over time as well.
Amazing.
Very
Well,
good.
I think this is a good opportunity to segue into straight up growth then. Tell us more about what exactly did you guys do, the kinds of sellers that you're working with, and how you help them.
Yeah, so we're Straight Up Growth. We're an Amazon growth agency. We manage about $50 million in ad spend and do about $500 million a year in Amazon sales. Work with all sorts of brands. I've got a lot of strength in the health and wellness, the beauty, the pet, anything consumable. We're really, really strong at new customer acquisition. Here, we work with sellers anywhere from, I don't know. We have worked with a couple of like net new sellers that we get you to, $1 million a month isn't crazy if there's, the right opportunity. We, have worked with brands that are doing 5-10 million a month too. So we've got the ability to kind of scale whatever your kind of needs are, but feel free to reach out to us at Straight Up Growth.
Awesome. So that website, y'all, is straightupgrowth.com. And if you have a question for the team, you can reach out at Amazon at straightupgrowth.com. Love it when the URLs are to the point. Easy breezy.
Super easy.
Make it easy. We're super efficient. What do you expect? So I'm just kidding.
Absolutely.
I love it. I love it. Awesome. Well, Daniel, thank you so much for being here with us today. Rob, do you have any final questions before we sign off?
No, I think that was amazing. No, you absolutely covered everything. I love the tips on the outside traffic, driving outside traffic. It's absolutely amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much for being on. We do appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Appreciate the great work GETIDA does as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you for everybody who tuned in today. And we will see you on the next one.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Sellernomics Podcast. Special thanks to our sponsor, GETIDA. Did you know that Amazon probably owes you money for FBA reimbursements? Get $400 in free FBA reimbursements at getida.com/Sellernomics. Be sure to join us again next week for more great tips on how to grow your business. And thanks again for listening.